Welcome to our Beyond 20 campaign, a celebration of One Joshua Group's 20 years of service excellence. This is a One Joshua Group production, providing access to information and experts to help improve quality of life and health outcomes.
Thank you for joining us. The One Joshua Group is so pleased to be able to begin celebrating our 20th year, and we're going to spend these podcast moments talking about Beyond 20. One of our long-term friends and this guest is Stephanie V. Harvey. Ms. Harvey is a well-known interior designer. She's a construction expert. And is noted for presenting information to individuals who help them have a healthy, stress-free life. Stephanie, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So we mentioned earlier that housing is one of the social determinants of health. And your experience and your expertise, and you talk about some of this in your book, Rising from the Floor, and we'll talk about that a little later, looks at the importance of what our living environment should be. So we know that where we live is a critical component of improving health outcomes. What should we think about when we look at creating a stress-free, comfortable living environment, Stephanie?
Yes. Well, I think first people must understand that a lot of times we'll say we're going home. Your home should be your living space. That means it is the way you live and what keeps your sanctuary at peace. Every day people have the stresses of the world, work, children, expectations that they have on themselves and others. So the first thing, you must look inside of yourself, see what balances you. When you have your living space, you must keep in mind certain things like what makes you feel good. Everything makes different people feel good. You might want to read a book and sit in a certain area because the sun comes that way. That's fine. There are people, music, soft music really brings down the stresses of the world. It does a lot, so different scents, oils, colors are very important. When you want peace within your home, there's color analysis that have been done in the design and the construction world. So when you usually go look at homes, you'll never see a home with a red room, an orange room, a bright green room. They are known to speed up the heart rate. So when you look at colors, you look at soft neutrals, you look at pastels, things that are peaceful to you. So everyone may have a different color that they love, but especially it's very important. What room do you spend most of your time in? If you're a person that spends most of your time in the family room, have soft things around you. You know, a lot of people like leather, but a nice Chanel or something that is very warm and comforting. You've sat in a chair all day in an office, and the ergonomics of sitting in a chair in an office, you know, you need relief. So when you go home, you need to be able to relax, release, and repair yourself. So that is so important when you go home. Realize it's your sanctuary. You should be able to go home and have all the pressures of the world away from you.
So, Stephanie, it's interesting, and you mentioned, quite often working kind of becomes your second home. All of our chairs are leather, and very few of them are any other fabric than leather. And I think that has to do with durability rather than comfort. When we work, it's not for you to be comfortable. It's for you to be productive. But I think that's something that we need to consider. We have a first home and a second home. And for many of us, our office is our second home. So we think about utilizing the design services of a Stephanie V. And the first thing that we would think about is That's too expensive. I can't afford that. Does decorating have to be expensive?
No, that is a one of the biggest fallacies among people. Usually, when you get an interior designer, she can save you money because
Hmm.
she's buying at a wholesale. So, usually, she will look at your budget, work within your budget. A good design professional works for you. Okay. So, they will find out where to shop for you, what you're looking for. There, everything doesn't have to be expensive. A good mix is what really makes design go together.
Hmm.
And then you will sit down with the design professional and she'll tell you what things you should put your money in and what things you shouldn't. Like you might buy a good sofa because you don't want to replace it every 2 years. But
Hmm.
then the accessories, that's what makes a room. It's like that little black dress or that suit. It's the tie or it's the jewelry. And people don't understand. You will buy your basics and then you will accessorize around it. There are stores like Home Goods. A lot of people don't know that Home Goods brings in, I'd say 65% of that stuff have come from design centers that now they have overstock. That's why when you see it, you won't see it again. Now, a good way to do that, start looking in some of those expensive magazines. Know the names of the brands. So when you
Hmm.
go into Home Goods, you will recognize
Recognize the
the
brands.
real brand
Hmm.
from the generic brand. I
Hmm.
have gone in Home Goods and bought things that if I bought in the design center at my wholesale, I couldn't buy that. So when you get in a position and you really want some advice, first thing you must also flat fee. Never do anything open ended. If you talk to someone and they say, I'm $100 an hour, I'm $200, what you have to realize is when that lady or man works for you, they're looking for five other people.
Hmm.
And so you don't know. So, no, it can be very affordable and it keeps you from making expensive mistakes because you want to build. So, as you move, you're not always replacing.
So, this is a very important conversation. It's an important conversation in that many people don't get around to listen to a Stephanie V design expert on the go with this kind of personalized experience. We hear this in other places, but we don't hear it from Stephanie V, who has a holistic, and I really mean holistic, if you know what I mean,
Yes.
approach to addressing some of these concerns that are primary concerns. Now, so we've realized that there are colors, textures that we should look at when we are designing our living, having our design living space for us. We believe that, as always, you're going to pay up front or you're going to pay in the back. So you have to decide where you're going to spend your money.
Right.
Your home is like your wardrobe. You buy a good set of bones. Same thing with buying a house. You buy a house that has good bones. You can
That's right.
change the exterior on it, but the house
That's right.
needs to have good bones. So you've told those things with us now. So I've gotten through these perfunctory responsibilities. What should my first project be in redesigning the sanctuary, this living space you've talked about? What do I do first?
The first thing you do, you decide what area is most important to you.
Mm.
Okay. If you like to entertain, you do your family room. See, the first mistake most people make, they want to do everything. I have to have this. You don't have to have anything. You are better off with one room and it is appointed well and
Hmm.
completed than to be doing things all over a space. Then you won't see the rewards of your labor. So, what you want to do, if let's say you have no money, the first thing you want to do, go buy some candles. Okay. You'd be surprised how just candles, lighting them in different areas of the house give you peaceful atmosphere. Everything is about the senses, the sensory, you know, and good smells. Now you can
Hmm.
go, there are rooms, different rooms, all types of things like, oh my God, I can't even think of the name of them right now. But there are so many things. And go to Home Goods. You can go to Home Goods and see something that's in Neiman Marcus for your home for $80. They have it for $10.99. So the first thing you do, if you have no money, just take a space, make it your space. Do you know what I'm saying? Have a meaning in that space. If it's the living room, do the living room. Now, when you talk about growing the space, think of your lifestyle. How do you live? Now, a lot of people do they do first what should be last, the bedroom. The bedroom is your space, okay? Now, you may do some things in the bedroom, but when you entertain, if they're sitting on boxes, it doesn't mean anything. So what you want to do, you want maybe just a family room.
Mm-hmm.
I tell people before you go and buy different things, oh, I got to have a dining room. A family room gets a lot of wear. Invest in a good sofa. Now, don't get past consignments. Go to some of your better areas. And sometimes you will find sofas and pieces that are designer that you can get for a fraction of a cost. It all goes back to studying.
Mm-hmm.
Start looking in those books, finding out what are the top sofas, what are the top lighting, and know what you're looking for. You don't have to spend a lot of money. You see what I'm saying? But you have to have a plan. And the
Mm-hmm.
plan is based around how you live. Don't
Mm-hmm.
go get something because the lady next door bought it. And the next biggest mistake, I saw this in the magazine. I want you to give me this space. I told a lady once, when you show me people moving on that page, I will make you this space because all of that is stage. None
Mm-hmm.
of it is livable. So you will see something in a magazine. Yes, it looks nice, but a lot of it has been tampered with. I had a room once that I did in a fabulous home. And one day I went to the design center and I saw the room. The room had marble floors. The floors had been wood. The
Mm-hmm.
rooms had. So, what I'm saying to people, live through yourself for your own inner peace.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know? And you will never get that from designing your space from a magazine, the people next door
Mm-hmm.
trying to spend a lot of money.
Yeah, I again see that we talk about the issues around social determinants of health, economics, something you just mentioned, the whole economic stability, buying what you can afford,
Yes.
housing, so that it is restful, it is relaxing, it helps contribute to the quality of life, and that indeed contributes to the quality of your health. And the other part, and just to tie that back in, seek the experts, the people who have the experience, the people who have the interest, whose interest is you, so that you can have this kind of living environment and something that's healthy for you. Now, we want to move into another area of expertise, and that is of your areas of expertise. And Stephanie, I know that there are many. This one is about construction. So I've decided that I am going to move to another home. What should I look for in the beginning when I start looking at houses other than a curb appeal? What's the important part that I should look at once I walk into the house? Or, as you said, learning, getting the education, getting the information first. What should I look for in that MLS listing?
The first thing you should look for is your budget and what you can afford. And then you must realize that anybody can sell you anything. Know what your needs are before
Mm-hmm.
you go out and even get an agent. All right. If you know that you can afford in a certain area 3 bedrooms, 2 bath, do not let someone show you a 4 bedroom, 4 bath. See, so what happens, you get tied up with emotions. A lot of people don't realize that when you first start and you're going to purchase a home, this cannot be emotional. That is why usually the diamond in the rough usually stands for a long time. because
Mm-hmm.
you're better off finding something that is below what you wanted to purchase. And you can go in and customize it little by little for you. You know, things feel better when you're not in debt. So the first thing is know your budget. Okay. Then think about what you need, not just today, but if you never get the opportunity to move, what will be your needs for tomorrow? If you're single, all right, can you live in this house if you did get married or if you got a partner or if you adopted a child? You know, don't just think now, because a lot of times people said, this is my starter home, and they're still in that home 30 years later. Okay. So now we're going more in the construction industry. I got certified last year in something called universal housing.
Mm-hmm.
Now you are seeing multiple generations living in one space under one roof. And it has nothing to do with the size of the home. You have more parents coming now and living in the space with their children.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have, so you'll have kids 5, 10, a 13-year-old. You have the father, the mother, or whoever, and the partners. And now you have somebody's mother or father or both.
Mm.
So now you're working. You have to think, even for yourself, if you got sick, it's even about your health. You see showers now, you can walk in without a ledge. If a senior uses that, they can wheel in. They have enough of a swing. Always make sure that there's room. So you might buy this house today and you don't have that in there. Make sure there's space for that. If you were to stay there for 20, 30 years, make sure that there is space to put a seat. I never build a house without putting a seat in the shower with a handheld at arm's
Mm-hmm.
length
Mm-hmm.
so that you could break a leg. You don't have to be old.
Right.
And you can
Right.
still, so you have to think about universal housing.
Right. So that's a very important point. Caregivers, caregiving, multi generational living spaces, just multi generational living. And I
Right.
wanted to ask you about that. When we begin, and you talked about that, creating that space for our village so that it supports the family and not just the flight of fancy
Right.
as a home for us, because you can break your leg or become incapacitated for any short or long period of time, regardless of age, regardless
That's
of economics or anything related to that. So it's really, really important. And not just homes.
right.
Home doesn't have to be a house.
That's right.
Home can be an apartment, a condo, I guess a tiny home now, an
Yes.
abode, whatever you want it to be. You apply the same principles to moving
That's right.
from one of those to the other. I did have another question, um, and this pertained to something you'd mentioned earlier, and I want to go back to that because I was reading something recently, and I'm going to tell you I've never really thought about this, and it's the same way with colors for houses. Why, when you go to a restaurant, you never find blue plates in a restaurant? That they don't serve food in restaurants in blue plates. Well, Stephanie, I have blue plates in my house. I think I'm going to put them away because the magazine says you shouldn't serve food on blue plates. But let's go back to a moment to the colors that we use in our environment. Let's revisit that again so that you can help reemphasize the colors that help us have a relaxing,
Okay.
calming environment. Can we go back and revisit those
Yes, we
colors again?
can. Colors make such a difference, even what room the colors are in. But it's interesting. Years ago, people would say, "Oh, what's the color? Oh, is it yellow? Is it pink?" Because you have to remember, it's just like fad clothes. Clothes. That's
Hmm.
just a trend. Okay. But when you're thinking about long term, having a peaceful place, stick with your neutrals, your
Hmm.
soft whites, your taupes, your grays, your very light blues. Stay away from hot colors, your reds, your orange, your your purples, your bright greens, because a lot of times also when you go into a color, you limit yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Talking about your blue plate, I can tell you why the restaurant doesn't have blue plates. They're trying to sell food.
They
I
are.
have all color plates. I have black.
I know. I
You
understand.
know,
They're
and then
trying
when
to
they
say
start
that.
when they start putting swirls on the plate, that means there's no food. They're just filling
Right.
it. So in your home, you want to always make a space that's soothing. So when you get into
Mhm.
those neutrals, it's stress free. It's just like in furnishing. Choose things, and you see a lot more now of clean lines.
Mm.
There's a lot of research done with furniture. And what they're finding is the clean lines, the mind rest. When you have a lot of busyness around you, just like I tell people, your big pieces, do not have a lot of prints all over your big pieces. Okay? Have your basic pieces, but you can have all the print on the pillows, the art, different things, because if you get tired of it,
Mhm.
you can just change that out. But guess what? The basics stay the same.
Mhm.
So when you have anything that's neutral, when you bring color in, it bounces off the neutral. So the pinks are pinks, the greens are green. Do you know what I'm saying? And
Mhm.
it's just the whole living space. If people
Mhm.
just remember, you need to be alive.
Mm.
Okay, that house need to tell your story. I used to
Mm.
be known for doing ethnic houses.
Mm.
Ethnic doesn't just mean people of color.
Mhm.
Ethnic means different things that have to do with your ethnicity. So if you're Italian, you should have things from that have come from your roots. But you must know how to put those things together. You should have things from where you've come from, your heritage, which is soothing, but also where you're going.
Yeah.
It should
So
tell your story.
yeah. So this is Stephanie V. Harvey, and Stephanie is an expert interior designer and construction expert, and she's an author as well. And I want to take another minute, another moment. Is there a place that you would recommend we start with creating a calming environment in our house?
Yes. Where you should start is usually the least expensive: paint.
Mm,
Paint tells many a story and gives so many different moods. So
mm,
if someone says, I don't have money to buy new furniture, I don't have money to buy accessories, paint. So always start with the palette. It is just like a wonderful oil painting. They first put the bases on the canvas before they add the other strokes. That's how you look at your home.
mm. That is probably uh, a lot more economically reasonable. And we're talking about the social determinants of health again here. So we go back
Yes.
looking through a very different lens. And thank you so very much, because your perspective has certainly added depth to this conversation. And I think it will add much more depth to people's understanding. And one of the other titles we mentioned for you was author. Rising from the Floor. I want
Mhm.
you to tell us about that book. And on page 5, there is a quote that says, when a residential house burns down,
Yes.
more and more ashes produced during the smoldering stage. The visible destruction of the flame is apparent, but the real danger is when the flames disappear and smolder. Now, Stephanie, this is a life lesson. Can you tell
Yes.
us about that?
Yes. That just like the name, rising from the floor. So many times people don't realize that when you get to the bottom of the pit of depression or life devastation, there's a floor. It doesn't have to be a physical floor. I went through a divorce and I became displaced. Displacement can make so many people physically sick, unwell. And this book is for people who have been displaced through death, divorce, or other life devastations that have affected them financially, emotionally, or physically. So many people are not me. They don't know how to get up from that floor. And the flames is when you're in the situation. But so many people have been taught through years that you can never admit it. It took me 17 years to look at what I really had been through, because I don't know if I would have went through the fire the way I did. So a lot of times people don't understand there's smoldering inside of you. You don't know where to go. You don't know what you're supposed to be. You can't even think of where you started out, and in that book, I talk about mindfulness. I talk about knowing who you are. I talk about taking you back and find out who you used to be. And not in this book, but there's another chapter that I'm writing called Are You Foreclosed On? And what I talk about is that we were all born with a destiny full of deeds. And as we go through life disappointments to ourselves, to others, as we've had disruptions in our life and unmet expectations, you start giving a piece of your deed out as you go through life. You look like a doctor, you look like a lawyer, and one day you stop and you realize that you're upside down. There's no equity within you. And you're just like that boarded up house that had beauty at one time. It's just sitting there. So that in itself, a lot of people with their health, it's the internal house. When I was a designer, I did many homes for NFL ball players and celebrities, and I started noticing some projects were perfect. Some they were never happy. Then I realized I would go into the houses in the city doing things for the county. These people didn't have anything, but I saw something in them that I didn't see with the people in the mansions. They had purpose. So what I'm telling people in the book, you're owed a new beginning. Some people don't know how to get up and have a new beginning. And be aware of the smoldering. There is nothing wrong with admitting that there is something inside of you. Get professional help. A lot of these things, that is what affects our health. Depression is rampant, more suicides than you've ever heard of. And a lot of it has to do with people don't know how to rise from that floor.
So, Stephanie V. Harvey, friend, author, designer, construction expert, as always, you're inspirational. Your information to us is aspirational. We thank you so very much for being one of our guests in this 20 Beyond campaign for One Joshua Group. Thank you very much for joining us. It's good to catch up with you, and it
Yes,
won't be
thank
so
you.
long next time.
I know.
Yes, and thank each of you for joining us for our Beyond 20 campaign and our guest, Stephanie V. Harvey, author extraordinaire, who's told us that beyond the ashes, yet we can still rise. So just remember that. Thank you, and we hope each of you will join us for our future podcasts. Be kind and be considerate. Thank you.
This edition of Beyond 20 is a Life Beat podcast sponsored by One Joshua Group, your strategic source of engagement to improve life through better health, education, and information. For more information, visit us at theonejoshuagroup.com or follow our work on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter using hashtag OneJGCollabs. One Joshua Group, building capacity, expanding resources, joining what you know with what we've learned.